Hello everyone and welcome. This is going to be video number 2 of my ZModeler 3 tutorial series. Today I will be going over how to convert objects for use in GTA 5, as well as some very basic and simple texturing. As far as UV mapping, this is not going to get very in detail with UV mapping, because this object in particular is just a very basic antenna. It's all black all the way around. It only requires one simple texture. If you were using more complex textures, you would not texture this way that I'm going to be texturing this antenna. So I would not really recommend following this as a guide for texturing. This is just, again, a very basic way of doing so, with this being an antenna that's all black. But to start off, so you've got your object in ZMod, and I've went over how to import, export, all that stuff in the first video. But you would go to File, Import, you would find your file, import it in. It could be an OBJ or whatever other file it is. Normally people will use OBJs. But you import it in, and as it sits right now, this is my antenna. This is your LO, this is your L1, this is your L2, and this is your L3. The reason that all of these look a little different from each other, your LO is your highest level of detail. It's going to be the one that you see when you're standing up close to the object. Your L1 is going to be from a little bit further away. Your L2 is going to be even further than your L1, and of course your L3 is going to be even further than the L2. Now, the game does go up to an L4, but I have chose I had chose to not make an L4 for this object since it was so small. For some objects like a light bar, you do want to have an L4, and an L4 would literally just be a box. For the L4, I would basically just get rid of this little antenna bump right here and just leave this, but it's really unnecessary. It's something that's so far away it's not even really noticeable, so it doesn't really matter. So to start out, you will make a dummy, and this is I'm going to go over, actually no, what I need to do is go over the texturing thing first. Reason for that, we'll find out here in a minute. So I'm just going to go to wireframe so I can see what I've got selected, what I'm grabbing. So to start out, what you're going to want to do is go to your materials browser, and this is going to be the texturing part. To start, you're going to go to your material browser right here. You're going to click it. Now I've already made a material, just testing something. I'm going to delete it and remake it to show you. So to create a new material, you're going to want to go here and click on new. Your default material will always stay in your scene. I don't believe you can ever delete it. It's just one of those things that just stays there. It doesn't transfer over into the game or anything, but it's one of those things that ZMod has to use, I guess, for placement or something. I don't know, but it's always there. Don't bother trying to delete it. It won't delete. And in some cases that it does delete, you normally end up screwing up your ZModeler scene and you have to redo everything. The one time that I did manage to delete the default material, it did basically fuck up my whole entire thing. I don't know why, but it is what it is. Anyways, so when you go to new and you make your new material, it'll show up like this. It'll look kind of similar to your default material. You'll then go over here to this little world looking settings option. You go down to GTA 5, and then from there you go down to vehicle generic. From here you go down to this menu, and you're going to want to go down to vehicle underscore mesh for this object, because this is based off of I think it's called a Sharkey antenna, and it has, I don't know where, but someone had me make this for them a while back, and it has a little bit of a shine to it. So you're going to want to use vehicle underscore mesh for this. Now when you make the material and you assign it to mesh, it's going to apply this little shiny look to it. Now mind you, I already have my textures loaded into the textures browser, so you want to go here, textures browser, and you're going to want to load in all the textures that you want to use. Now, so far I just have a black.png, spec underscore dark.png, env.dds, and blank underscore normal.dds. Now, to load in textures, it's very simple. You'll just go over to wherever you keep your textures, You'll grab some textures, whatever it may be, and you'll load them in. I've already loaded my textures, so I didn't have to worry about it, but it's very simple. Again, you just go to add, you find whatever textures you want to use. You know, I have a textures thing full of different bump maps and stuff, whatever it may be. You know, say you wanted to load in this bump map here for a screw. You click on that, open, it pulls it in. But I don't want to use this, of course, so I'm just going to delete it. But that's just very simple. It's how you load in textures. It's easy, to the point, straightforward. Now for this, I'm also going to make a new group. This is stuck in this one in particular is stuck in vshare.ytd. You never want to really get rid of this because this texture is shared among all vehicles. This is one of those textures that you won't have to continuously copy in your YTD, and I can go over doing all of that later, as far as like loading in cars, GTA, etc. But don't bother deleting this group. As for this one, you're going to want to make a new group, and we'll just name it antenna. Now, some people don't bother making groups. It doesn't really affect anything, but for the sake of keeping everything tidy, I like to do so. Now here, you'll just go in and you'll click here, here, and here. You'll drag over to your antennas box. Now that should place those there. There we go. Now this still will all be in all textures, but it'll just be grouped a little bit better. So now you have your antenna textures and you have your vehicle shared texture right here. And then in all textures you have everything. Now continuing where we were with materials browser. Alright, sorry for the little cutout. I got a phone call. So picking up where I was, so going back to the material browser here, we're going to pull up our new material that we've created here, and we're going to name it. So we're going to name it, of course, you just kind of click, and it has this little shaded little orange box right here. When you hover over the name, you click it once, click and drag, or just double click, but we're going to rename it to antenna underscore mesh. And then from here, we're going to go to this little box right here. Looks like a little task board or whatever. This is going to pull up your material properties. Now, you're going to start out with this. You don't ever really want to change anything up here unless you're really trying to get into like a certain look of an object, or you want to change your specular color or something, but you normally really don't ever have to touch any of this stuff here. You're going to want to go down to these little tabs here. Now all of this looks kind of weird, kind of scary, but don't worry about it. So when you have blank underscore normal.dds from your vshare added in, and then an env.dds added in, ZModeler 3 will automatically add those in to your material properties as long as it's named correctly and it's in the DDS format. It will not do that for PNGs. So we're going to scroll back up to the top, and your detail is going to be this black color here. So let's go to this right quick. So it's going to be your black.png here. Your detail is, of course, what your object, like how your object is going to look, you know, if whatever it may be. That's your detail. It's kind of straightforward, to the point. Your mask option here is where you either put dirt on an object, or, you know, snow, or whatever it may be. For this, I'm just going to add that black.png again. The only time you really ever want to apply that black mask to anything is when it's an interior. And then some people, of course, will use dirt in an interior, and they'll like kind of put some on the floor or whatever. But for the most part, most people will use just a black texture for their mask when they're doing like a car or whatever. But for this, I'm just going to put it on black and not have to worry about it. I will go over how to dirt map and how to add dirt and stuff to objects in a separate video by itself, because that can get kind of tedious and kind of long. So I'd rather keep it for its own video and maybe show something else in that one. And then coming down, you now have your spec map. Now your spec map is going to control how much reflectivity your ENV gives off. So I'm just going to use a very basic gray spec map here. You can use whatever color in the color spectrum, really, and get really into detail with it. People, for the most part, will use like a greenish type color, I believe, for black. Don't quote me on that if I'm wrong. I believe that's what most people will use though, is like a greenish type color. They all have their different uses. I don't quite understand it fully, so I can't really talk on it much. But I'm just going to stick with a gray, just basic kind of spec map. It kind of gives off that same kind of look and result, so we can use it for right now. Again, this is just going over mainly how to convert an object. So now you have your material and it looks like this. Now you probably wonder, well, how do I assign it to the object? So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to click and drag all of your objects that you have down here, and then in this menu you're going to click this and drag it to scene selection, and you're going to want to do this twice. Twice ensures that it is on the object. In some cases when you drag it over, it will still be default selection. You have to drag it in twice, and then it will change to your material that you have it set to. So now you have this right here. It looks about like this. Now this, it looks very dark. That's mainly because of the very dark gray spec map I've added to it. Now what you're going to want to do is grab all these one more time, go to your properties tab, go to your vertices tab, format, then you're going to want to add primary color and deformable apply. Now it doesn't change a whole lot. I believe if you do secondary it might change a little, which of course it did not. But you're going to want to add primary and deformable. Deformable is going to ensure that if you add a collision to it, it will actually deform the object. It'll actually be able to kind of, you know, say if you flip the car and it lands on the antenna and it has a collision set to it, it will bend it, whatever it may be, or even break it according to what ID you set for it. And primary color, I really don't know what primary color does, but I've been told to always have normals, tangents, primary color selected. And of course, if you ever have anything that's like pitch black, now this of course is not pitch black, it worked as it should be, but if you ever have anything that looks like this and all of these are ticked like so, you just want to untick them, press apply, then you want to go back in normals, tangents, primary color, deformable, apply it one more time, and it'll fix it how it should be. And again, yes, this is very dark. It doesn't really matter. This just is really showing how to convert an object, not really texturing. If I was texturing this, I would definitely wouldn't have it this dark. I'd be changing it up a little bit. But it's just, again, very basic, how to convert an object. So from here, what you're going to want to do is you want to go into any type of view. Now I've got to zoom out pretty far because this object's kind of big. It was just a straight import from 3ds Max into ZMod, and it's not scaled down how it should be. But anyways, so from here, what you want to do next is you want to go to move. Now I always spread my LODs out when I make them. I make all my LODs and stuff in 3ds Max, and I spread them out piece by piece. So I have my LO, my L1, my L2, and my L3, and my L4 if I had one. Now, what you're going to want to do is you want to grab all of these except for your LO. We're going to go to move. We're going to go and we're going to constrain it on the X axis. And we're just going to move it over and set it kind of inside the object. And then we're going to want to zoom in and just very carefully kind of place it about in the middle of the object and make sure it's nice and center as it can be with it. So then from there, we're going to want to just click and drag again, grab these two on the end, it'll deselect that one you had selected, grab this one, drag it over, same concept, just want to take it, try and kind of center it the best you can. You can't get it perfect, and the more you zoom in ZMod for some reason, the less it allows you to move. So if you zoom in really far, it'll start to kind of lock up in a way. Now right here it's not doing it because the object is so big. But if I were to scale these down enough and then start trying to move an object, it would be really hard. I'm not quite sure why, but that's just the way the program works, and in my opinion it's kind of dumb. But you know, it is what it is. So I'm going to kind of put that one about right there. I'm using this line right here as well to kind of position it, since these cylinders are both the same width. And then from here, I'll grab this last one, pull it over. Now this one, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is your L3. This is a very small detail in game. I'll center this with the bottom pieces here, about like so. So now everything is set up all together. Now yes, it looks like a clusterfuck of stuff at the moment. Don't worry, we'll fix that in a minute. Now what we're going to want to do next is we're going to want to select all of these once more. Go to select, actually not select, my bad, display. Want to go to center local axes to object and click just once, and it's going to center all the axes together with the objects. And then just for the sake of having it kind of center with the scene, I'm just going to move this over some, just to kind of line it up here, and maybe move it down a little bit, kind of like so. Now next what we're going to want to do is we're going to make a dummy. Your dummy helper button right here allows you to create a dummy. Now again, the dummy is going to be very small and this object is not scaled down how it should be, but that's okay. Dummy size does not necessarily matter unless you're setting up non-ELS lights, which is a totally different subject. That's also something I do not do. I refuse to do it. It sucks, donkey dick. I hate it. But anyways, so you have your dummy made right here. It's very, very small. Now if I was, of course, to scale down these objects, it wouldn't look so small next to them, but I'm not really going to bother. The same concept works regardless of how big or small the object is. So now we have our dummy, and we're going to name this misc underscore antenna. Now in game, for misc underscore objects to work, they have to be, I think it's A through Z. Most people will name it just kind of whatever because it's an object that doesn't move, it doesn't really operate or anything, it doesn't really matter. But it does not work properly with the game scripts per se, but it doesn't, again, it doesn't really matter. You can name it whatever. You can name it misc underscore booty hole, you can name it misc underscore, you know, Donald Trump or fucking Bernie Sanders, whatever the hell you wanted to name it, it doesn't matter. But let me go back because I did that without telling you guys. But anyway, so your misc underscore whatever, it could be A, B, C, D, or it could be whatever other name you want to give it. So you make your dummy, you rename it. Now from here you want to click and drag, or not click and drag, but you want to click your last one, and then shift click your top one there. So you click this bottom one, hold down shift and click your top one. It grabs all of these. Then take these, click and drag, move them into your dummy helper here. So now you have all of these are now the children of your dummy. Your dummy is now the parent, and your antennas right here are the children of the dummy. Now from here you want to go back into structure because I still have the properties tab open. Go back to structure. Now converting is very, very simple. It's extremely simple, and people try and overcomplicate it or think it's hard. It's not. So from right here, make sure you don't have any of your LODs or any of these options over here ticked on. So if you do, just go over here, untick LO, make sure none of that stuff is selected, then go to convert to compound, then go to this little lock right here, and then from here, then you want to go and tick on LO, then grab your LO right here, drag it in. I'm going to move this down some just so I have a little bit of room to work with and I can see what I'm doing. Then once you drag your LO in, you're going to go over to your L1, and note the LO is going to disappear because it is compounded now. That's the way you're going to know if it worked or not, is if you click out of the LO and that first one goes away. Then from your L1 tab, grab your L1, drag it in, L2, drag that one in, and your L3, drag that one in. Now you have basically successfully converted your object over to be able to use it in GTA 5. So once you're done with that, you click your unlock right here, and then you can go back to your LO. Boom, that's your first level of detail. L1, second level of detail. L2, third level. L3, fourth level. L5, or L4, we don't have an L4, but that would be your fifth level of detail. And so on and so forth. So that's very simple, straightforward, to the point. Dust and dirt does not apply, of course. That's how you would see your dirt mapping if you had it applied, but of course we just have a black texture on it, so you can't really see any of that. But that's very simple, straightforward, to the point, how you convert an object and how you texture it. Very simple, basic way to texture. Again, I wouldn't follow that, but you can do that for objects like this that are just all one color. So that covers that, and that is how you convert an object to GTA. Now this object, I could pull it in and use it right now, and it would work perfectly fine. So, hope this helps you guys, and of course, as always, thank you for watching.